We are continuing our MLB divisional breakdown, and today we're looking at the NL East. You're seeing some key additions here.
Yeah, man.
A lot of big names, huh?
Yeah. I mean, Matt Olson coming to Atlanta because Freddie Freeman took off, and then
Max Scherzer to New York.
Yeah, and then look at Philadelphia. There's a deep drive into left field by Castellanos, and that's going to be a home run. Kyle Schwarber now joining the party as well. But yeah, New York. Wow, Max Scherzer is going to kind of change the game there for the Mets, who once again have World Series hopes that will be crushed and over, I'm sure, by like July. Jorge Soler now in Miami. And Nelson Cruz, 70 years old and still hitting taters, going to be doing it now in Washington, because let's keep in mind here, the National League has a DH now, which is exciting stuff. Thank God we don't see pitchers hitting anymore.
All right, let's bring in DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Rotowire's Erik Halterman. Fellas, Steve, thank you for being here. Let's just jump in. Steve, which team has improved the most this offseason in the NL East with additions, re-signing? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the NL East was very busy this offseason. You know, we took about a 90-day break or whatever in between, but there was still a lot of moves that were had before and after the lockout. I mean, I think it's fair to say that every team did improve in some aspect, but you can't disregard how much the Mets are going all in this year. Doesn't mean anything until they actually win something, which is, you know, a big step to take. But you look at the list of players that they added this offseason. I mean, anytime you add Max Scherzer, even though he's getting up there in age, the way he's performing and still pitching is still a huge boost to them. I mean, I think it's fair to say the Mets have the best rotation by far in that division. So have to give it the hats off to the Mets here.
Do you agree, Erik?
So I can certainly see the case for the Mets. The names they added are huge. The one thing is, if you account for the subtractions as well, I think it no longer looks like the Mets. Of the other top teams in the division, obviously the Braves did lose Freddie Freeman, so I don't think you can make the case that they're the most improved unless you cheat and say that, well, they didn't have Acuna for the second half last year, and if he counts as an addition, sure, maybe it's them. The Mets, though, they did certainly get better, but they also lost Marcus Stroman, Noah Syndergaard, Javier Baez, Michael Conforto. That's a lot of talent to lose. Whereas if you look at the Phillies, they lost Hector Neris, Ian Kennedy, Brad Miller. That's like kind of it. Not exactly names in that same tier. So in terms of net improvement, I think it is the Phillies adding Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Corey Knebel to the back of the bullpen, and a few lottery tickets back there. I think when you factor in that they didn't really lose anybody that they care much about, I think you could make the case that it's actually them and not the Mets who had the stronger offseason.
All right, well, as you guys have kind of spit off a few names, ton of additions here to improve rosters. And that really led to every team having a higher win total than their 2021 finish. So, Erik, which team will go over its win total this year?
Again, you could make the case for the Phillies, partially because they sit in an interesting spot in that they probably still need to add another piece at the deadline. So teams like that, their total talent by the end of the year is higher than what the projections say right now. And the projections actually already like the Phillies to go over that 85.5 win total. They're about 87.5 on Fangraphs, 86.5 on Baseball Prospectus. The Braves and Mets are also seem to be fairly priced according to the projections. The Braves are about 1.3 wins over that 90.5 win total on both sides. So they're a good case too. But I think because the Phillies, if they're playing at an 85 win pace come late July, they're going to need to add something so they can play at, closer to a 90 win pace the rest of the way to make the playoffs. I think they're in that sweet spot where the over seems pretty interesting.
Steve, which team exceeds expectations in the win total department?
Yeah, I have no issue taking the over on the Braves to go over 90.5. I mean, I get it. They lost Freddie Freeman, but you're, taking Freddie Freeman and you're putting Matt Olson in his spot. It's not like it's a huge downgrade in there. And then they also added Kenley Jansen to the back of that bullpen. He's been one of the better closers for years now over with the Dodgers. Now he's with the Braves. That's something huge for the back of their bullpen. And I absolutely love their rotation. After Charlie Morton, it's just a plethora of young guys with tremendous upside. Max Fried, Ian Anderson, even Tucker Davidson potentially grabbing that 5th spot. There's a lot of good pitching on that Braves staff. Their offense is going to be impeccable. Adding Olsen into that mix, some extra power, even some more power than Freddie Freeman had, I think it's going to be huge for them. So I like them going over 90.5.
All right, on the DK Sportsbook, there's a team versus team regular season wins match bet. So usually the Mets and Yankees are just competing for the back page, but in this bet, it's direct competition. So Mets plus 1.5 wins is minus 105. I mean, with Scherzer and DeGrom, Steve, can the Mets finish within a game of the Yankees?
It's pretty incredible to see this number, right? Because this is not something you'd expect to see at any point, but the Mets have just gotten that much better. I think we have to really look at the two divisions here as well. The Mets have a much easier division compared to what the Yankees are going to be facing in almost half of their games in the AL East. There is so many legitimate teams in the AL East that it's not going to be easy sledding for any team in that division with the Rays, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and everything that they're doing. They're trying to turn into the East Coast version of the Dodgers, it looks like. That is not going to be an easy division, whereas the Mets have... It's not an easy division by any means, but I think we can say it's softer competition there. The whole NL as a whole, I think, aside from the West, is pretty soft. So I think that the Mets might be able to actually win this bet here. Both of these teams are within the same 90.5 wins projected for the Mets, 91.5 projected for the Yankees. So they're obviously right there. But I think the Mets can close out the season within a game of a half of the Yankees this season.
All right, Erik, what do you think? Could we see this happen? Could the Mets finish within a game of the Yankees?
Yeah, I think the line is set very fairly. It's almost exactly where the projected standings over at Fangraphs have it. I believe they have it as a 1.6 win gap over the in the Yankees' favor. And if they do manage to win an extra 1.6 games, I guess you take the Yankees side there. Really, this comes down to health, unfortunately. Both these teams are very talented, but they're two of maybe the most fragile teams out there. The Mets did add a lot of pieces, but it's a very old set of additions. Chris Bassett, I believe, is the second youngest starter in their opening day rotation, and he's 33 years old. Those new lineup additions they made, Starling Marte, Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, all at least 33 years old. So the potential downside here, even without factoring in that it's the Mets, is very high. But the Yankees, they're incredibly fragile as well. Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Josh Donaldson, Aaron Hicks, all those guys, significant injury concerns. So this really feels like a bet on which team you think is going to stay healthier, because I think in terms of talent, I think it's set really in the correct place.
Now, speaking of DeGrom and Scherzer, who we've mentioned a bajillion times in this segment, plus 330 and then plus 800 here, respectively, to win the NL Cy Young. Top two favorites, Philly, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, not far behind, plus 1,000 and plus 1,200 there. Erik, what are the chances the NL Cy Young comes out of the NL East?
I think it's over 50%. I mean, there are challengers from the other divisions. Corbin Burns, Walker Buehler, Brandon Woodruff being the notable ones. But 4 of the top 7 in the NL East, I think if you could find an NL East Cy Young bet, I'd take it. And out of that group of NL East pitchers, I think I would take Aaron Nola, mostly just because his odds are the best. He is correctly the worst of that set of 4 NL East pitchers, but not by a lot. He's also the youngest, so probably the least injury risk there. Wheeler's already dealing with something. We all know about Jacob deGrom's injury sagas, and Max Scherzer seems to deal with something minor every year these last few years. Nola's ERA last year was pretty bad, 4.63, but all of the underlying metrics loved him. Had his best full season strikeout rate just shy of 30% and his career low walk rate. So it still looks to me like a pitcher who's in his best form, still on the right side of 30. I like those odds for him there.
Steve, it's hard to see the NL Cy Young winner not coming out of this division.
Also, just you hate to be on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah.
Which
right.
I am.
I think we all are.
We all are.
Yeah.
But Jesse, you look great. So
phenomenal.
Thank you.
Don't get her started on these swollen thumbs.
I know.
These things are.
Hey, listen. She's going through it. She's looking great. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the Cy Young. Okay. And I'm a little disappointed. Nobody called me the Cy Young whisperer after my performance from last year, so that's a little disappointing. But whatever. Let's keep talking about this year. I mean, you look at the top 10 guys that are listed. NL East or not, like all of these guys have a very legitimate chance to win the Cy Young, which is probably why the odds are set as they are. So congrats to all the odds makers on that. But even going down the board, there's some other guys in the NL East that could surprise. Like I look at someone like Pablo Lopez at 35-1. That whole Marlins rotation is full of guys that have tremendous upside, and Lopez is one of those guys at 35-1. Not saying he's going to be the guy that's going to win it, but the NL East is just loaded with so much talent in the rotation that there has to be an extremely high chance that it's going to come out of the NL East here, even if it's with some of the obvious guys like DeGrom, like Scherzer, or Zach Wheeler. There's just so many guys that you can take here and at good odds too. So I would say that there is a very, very high chance it comes out of the NL East. If not, I bet it comes out of the West because you have guys like Carlos Rodon, who is now in the NL West with the Giants. He could have won it last year if he stayed healthy, but that's okay because Robbie Ray got it, so no problem there. But guys like him going into that division as well, there's a lot of talented pitchers that could take this prize home.
All right, guys. Steve, what's just like a player future from the NL East that you like right now? Plenty to choose from.
So, we talked about teams going up head-to-head over wins. You can get players to go head-to-head against each other for home runs. You can get Juan Soto at even money against Ronald Acuna to lead in home runs between the two players. Obviously, Acuna is an immensely talented player, but he has a lot of injury issues. That's why he's missed a ton of games over the past 2 years. Juan Soto finally has some protection in that Nationals lineup. You did not need to pitch to Juan Soto last year because there was nobody you feared after that. Bringing Nelson Cruz in as the DH is going to give Juan Soto the much-needed protection that he has needed. So now teams are going to have to pitch to Juan Soto. He's going to be able to show off that power and the talent that he has. It's going to be a close race if both of these guys remain healthy. But if I'm getting even money on Juan Soto, I'm absolutely taking that.
All right, Erik, player future that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was looking at these, that's actually the exact same one that I like. So I guess consider this a full panel endorsement. Juan Soto doesn't barrel the ball quite as often as Acuna does. Acuna was over 20% last year before he went down, although Soto did start barreling it more in the second half. He actually joked during the home run derby that it was going to fix his swing. A lot of guys talk about it ruining them the rest of the way, and he was right. So I guess he might know a thing or two about hitting. He also strikes out far less than Acuna, giving him more chances to homer. If we want to throw out a second potential one here, I talked about Bryce Harper's home run over previously. I believe it's at 33.5. All the projections pretty much like the over on that by at least a few. And I think with more talent around him in Philadelphia, that one's looking even better as well.
We'll get you out of here with this. Braves plus 140 to win the division. Mets sitting at plus 155. Philly at plus 380. Erik, are the Braves the pick to repeat, or do you like another team's odds to win it?
I thought I was going to come into this liking the Mets more, but looking at the projections, they really do favor the Braves. And I think the reason there partially is the Mets, in addition to all those additions, they had a bunch of subtractions. So it's not quite as good as an offseason as it looked. And again, they're very fragile, quite old. So I think the downside risk with the Mets is very high. If everything goes to plan, I think they're the best team in the division, but you can't assume everything's going to plan with a 26-man roster over 162 games. So give me Atlanta there.
Steven, talk to me.
The odds aren't overly enticing, especially with the Mets, kind of nipping at their heels there. I think the best bet overall is probably the Phillies at plus 380. But, what is the real chance that the Phillies can overcome the Mets and the Braves? Obviously, that's going to be something to overcome. So as it stands, the Braves are properly priced in this one here. You're just not getting a lot of bang for your buck here. So I think the Braves are the answer. But, again, I'm not running to bet this at plus 140 when there's a lot that can happen in a 3-team division. So it's the right move when it comes to how the odds are set, but I'm not exactly crazy about the odds.